عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. يقول سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بعد أن أقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم تر كيف ضرب الله مثلا كلمة طيبة كشجرة طيبة أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء تؤتي أكلها كل حين بإذن ربها ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس لعلهم يتذكرون. ومثل كلمة خبيثة كشجرة خبيثة اجتثت من فوق الأرض كشجرة خبيثة اجتثت من فوق الأرض ما لها من قرار. يثبت الله الذين آمنوا بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ويضل الله الظالمين ويفعل الله ما يشاء. صدق الله العظيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما. اللهم ربنا زدنا علما. اللهم أرنا حقيقة الأشياء كما هي. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. آمين يا رب العالمين. So we left off with a couple of ayats of this ruku to spare in Surah Ibrahim. We saw this in Surah Ra'd as well. We're seeing this here, and we're going to see actually three parables, three at least in Surah An-Nahl. Beautiful, beautiful analogies, parables, communicating so much depth. There is so much, and the range of how much is communicated, and how much it can be related to. It's pretty incredible, and there's only so much that we can talk about when speaking of these parables as they come. These examples that Allah gives us in these ayat. We saw the example being given in the previous surah, that of rain, and then that of metal, and the process of heating the metal and the foam either way, with respect to the water from the rain or with respect to the heating of the metal. And here again we see another parable in Surah Nahl. We're going to see, inshallah, the wonderful parable of the honeybee, and then that of milk as it comes from cattle, and there will be another one as well. So all of these wonderful parables, what they're communicating, this one in particular, have you not seen, alam tara kayfa, have you not seen, daraballahu mathalan, Allah gives an example, kalimatan tayyibatan, of a good word, of a pure word. All through these ayat, particularly in the Meccan surahs, also in the Madani surahs, when a religious clergy in particular is being criticized for making claims, religious claims, truth claims, without evidence, without sultan, without authority, without anything to back up those claims. قولهم بأفواههم, words from their mouth. يريدون أن يطفئوا نور الله بأفواههم. Another way of representing that is they're looking to put out the light of Allah with something which is only, with something which is nothing more than blows of their mouth. It has no backing. It is entirely fabricated. It is taking the form of words, and words are very powerful. Ideas are, they're, they have an impact. They're world changing. And if the ideas that those words represent, the impact that they're having, because literally people look to those words, people look to those ideas, and they shape their entire lives accordingly. So if it is the shirk that the people of Makkah are accustomed to, if it's Lat, Uzza, Manat, if it is that Allah bore sons or daughters, whatever the case may be, or however we saw the claims that the clergy made, if it is pronouncing something halal as haram, if it is pronouncing something to be mandatory when it wasn't, if it is pronouncing the importance and significance and absolute priority of something which wasn't as such, it has an impact. And very curious, very internally inconsistent, is that all of those people whose worldviews, their system of ideas, they're standing on their claims, they have no authority for them other than ancestry, or that this is just what our tradition is. This is just what our forefathers did. And little more than that. That attitude on one side, and then their demands of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is constantly and consistently engaged in identifying resources outside of himself, outside of the Quran, to affirm what he is bringing. Even the standards upon which the Quran is being put forward to be judged on, to be assessed on. And that is inconceivable for from their perspective, from how they carry religion, for their religious sources, for their sources of knowledge to open themselves up for external scrutiny. The Quran did that. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did that. That bring your own standards. You have your standards of poetry, literature, bring them. Assess, scrutinize, analyze. You have your own sources of tradition, ancestry. Fair enough. Let's go to Ibrahim alayhi salam, analyze, reflect. We will see Surah Luqman, you hold him in high esteem. Let's see what he was actually talking about. Let's see if that is consistent with what the message of the Quran is. Bible, biblical scholarship, you have standards there. Bring them. Bring them, analyze, reflect. You have standards of consistency. You have standards of hikmah. Bring it, analyze. Do your tadabbur. Do your tadabbur. See where this is coming from. So you have this consistent openness that the Quran depicts in the face of a necessary closed mindedness that their religious authorities have claimed for themselves. And that is the sense of security that the kalimatan tayyibatan carries with itself. That's how strongly rooted it is. That kalimatan tayyibatan, that beautiful word that is really actually grounded in something, not merely a concoction or a fabrication or a set of assumptions systematized into a worldview. No, it is grounded in something. It is secure. It is like a beautiful, like a beautiful tree, like a pure tree, like a good tree. Asluha thabitun. Its root is firm. It is very well grounded. It is very well grounded. It has no need to be in any way insecure of any external scrutiny, of any external analysis, given that those standards are held consistently, given that those standards themselves are standards are standards that can be affirmed as standards of truth. أصلها ثابت. Its roots are firm, its foundations are strong. وفرعها في السماء. And its branches reach the sky. There is no stagnation. There is no rigidity when it comes to a word or a kalima that is well grounded. There is always going to be growth. There is always going to be growth. Its well groundedness is manifest by how it represents itself and how it is open to affirmation from external sources outside of itself, outside of itself. I can't repeat that enough. And then it's how far it can grow, how far it can grow. The completeness of Tawheed, of the kalima of Tawheed, of the message of the Quran, of the legacy of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is not in how there is nothing at all after this, or that once it has been proclaimed and said and it's come, there is no room for anything after this. Rather, its perfection is the perfection of a tree in which growth is eternal. It is ever increasing perfection. It's always branching out. And its foliage, its beauty, its fruits are so widespread. So much so that it's going all the way to the sky. وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. Its branches reach out into the sky. تُؤْتِي أُكُلَهَا كُلَّ حِينٍ. It yields its fruit in every season. Again, its pragmatic value, excuse me for using a rather philosophical phrase, its utility, its benefit that it gives people, it should be tasteable. It's something that you can not just see, it's something you can taste. It's that real. It's that real. بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهَا. With the idhn, with the permission of its Rabb. Again, so beautifully the attribute of rububiyyah of Allah, as when you associate that with the process of the growth of a tree or the development of a plant is as that of a gardener. بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهَا وَيَضْرِبُ اللَّهُ الْأَمْثَالَ لِلنَّاسِ. And Allah strikes these examples for the people لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ, so that they may remember. The fruits of Islam, the fruits of Quran, the fruits of Tawheed, how it saved civilization, how it opened doors of inquiry, of to science, to reflection, to thinking, to logic, the way it was never there before. The way civilization progressed, it is it's mind-boggling. And if we are to claim that same well-rootedness and the same purity, then where's the sense of security? How open are we to external scrutiny? And where's the fruits? What fruits do we have to show for ourselves? وَمَثَلُ كَلِمَةٍ خَبِيثَةٍ. And the example of a khabith word, of an impure, a bad, a nasty word, a filthy word, is that of a filthy, nasty, khabith tree, اجتثت من فوق الأرض, uprooted just from above the earth, ما لها من قرار, having no stability, no roots, just claims. يثبت الله الذين آمنوا بالقول الثابت. Allah makes those who believed firm by these resolute words. See, one of the many beautiful things in the analogy of a tree is how the tree, where the tree draws life out of apparently dead earth. The tree is able to generate from that which would be considered waste, from that which would be considered anti-life. It's the carbon dioxide. It's the it's what you have expired, what you've let out. It's what you have excreted. It is able to generate life from that. It is able to pick out with all of what is mixed up, the nutrients and all that is organic and that is good, all the nitrogens and the carbons and the hydrogens and the oxygens and the sulfurs, whatever you have in the soil is mixed up with a whole bunch of gunk, with a whole lot of that which is not palatable, which is not digestible, which is not good. Yet the tree is that incredible industry which is able to filter out from all of that which is dead and even a source of death if you were to have it the way it's out there, life itself. There is nothing more life-giving in the sense of a symbol than a tree. It is able to, from the atmosphere, from the ground, extract life when all of what you can see is death. The dead plants, dead leaves, dead animals, dead humans. That's what a tree has to at its disposal. That's what a tree has at its disposal. And from that, it gives you fruits, it gives you leaves, and they give you life. يثبت الله الذين آمنوا بالقول الثابت. Allah makes those who believe resolute by these resolute words, by these firm words. He makes them stand strong by words that stand strong. If you want to assure someone, if you want to reinforce, validate, strengthen someone, you have to give them something strong to hold on to, something that is grounded, something that is well founded. And that's how Allah chooses to counsel. That is how Allah chooses to give strength. Fil hayatid dunya, in the life of this world. He's not the God of heaven. He's not the God of hereafter. He is very intent on being the God of your lives here. Wa fil akhirah. And of course, the hereafter as well. He's also not just a God of this world, because then that's the God of your bargains, God of immediate necessity, God that fulfills all that is necessary for me, and hell with everyone and everything else. Either way, fragmenting the godhood or his rububiyyah of him being both Allah here and hereafter is messed up. Either he is excluded from the life this world, and then you have the license literally to kill, and then a whole lot else. And then if he's exclusively the God of this world, again, in his name now, there is so much that is going to go around that is going to be wrong, which all of what he's responsible for, or all of what his function is to give me good here no matter what. And when that doesn't happen, it doesn't make sense. And how could he? And why me? Fil hayati dunya wa fil akhirah. In the life of this world and in the hereafter, وَيُضِلُّ اللَّهُ الظَّالِمِينَ, and Allah further misleads the unjust people. Because at least, even if there's no foundation, there's no roots, it still looks like a tree. They're gonna hold on to it. Allah lets them. وَيَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ, and Allah does what He wants effortlessly. He does what He wants, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Moving right along. أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ بَدَّلُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ كُفْرًا. Have you not seen those who replaced the favor of Allah with ungratefulness? They reciprocated the ni'mah that they got with kufr. وَأَحَلُّوا قَوْمَهُمْ دَارَ الْبَوَارِ, and they drove their people down into the house of ruin. The more influence you have, the more position you have within society, even within your own family. And there's always some influence somebody has or everybody has, even if it's just a couple of people in your vicinity. Your actions, your choices, they have an impact. They have a social impact. The greater that impact, the greater your circle of influence, the more, the riskier it is. For the people who chose incorrectly or the path of kufr with respect to their people, they had an impact. And that impact was that of ruin, destruction. Jahannama yaslawnaha, the hellfire, they'll burn in it. وَبِئْسَ الْقَرَارِ, and what an evil place to live. وَجَعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا, and they ascribe opponents to Allah, equals to Allah. لِيُضِلُّوا عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ, in order to misguide others from His way. قُلْ تَمَتَّعُوا, tell them, enjoy yourselves. فَإِنَّ مَصِيرَكُمْ إِلَى النَّارِ, for definitely your destination is hell. And it is very interesting how the hellfire is depicted in the form of a destination and a place of qarar, a place to live. That's pretty much most of what we're struggling for in life. Stability. Our goal, our destination is to finally have that stability, is to finally have that security. And hellfire is a destination. It is a goal. There is stability only for a place to live, but it's horrible. It's incredibly painful. It's made of fire. قُلْ لِعِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, tell my ibad who have believed, يُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ, to establish prayers, وَيُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ, and to spend what we have granted, سِرًّا وَعَلَانِيَةً, secretly as well as openly. مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَ يَوْمٌ, before there approaches a day, لَا بَيْعٌ فِيهِ وَلَا خِلَالٌ, in which there will be no bargain. You can't buy good deeds, nor any friendships. No one can bail anyone out. Allahu alladhi khalaqa samawati wal ard. Allah is the one who created heavens and the earth. وَأَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً, and he sent down from the sky water. فَأَخْرَجَ بِهِ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ رِزْقًا لَكُمْ, and from that he produced fruits for your nourishment, for your nutrition. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ الْفُلْكَ, and he made the ships subservient to you. لِتَجْرِيَ فِي الْبَحْرِ, that they may sail in the sea. بِأَمْرِهِ, with his command. Earth, life thereupon, we take it for granted. But what went around to make that life possible? What was necessary for a dead earth to become life giving? And similarly, a very inhospitable sea, a very dangerous, when you look at it, it's intimidating as to how incredibly dangerous it is. It can just swallow you up. No, no qualms whatsoever. But then the ships that allow for you to survive even in a place like that. His amr, his meaningful, directive, command, purposeful direction. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ الْأَنْهَارِ, and he made the rivers subservient to you. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ الشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ دَائِبَيْنِ, and he made the sun and the moon subservient to you. How this orbiting of the sun, of the moon, how it's life-giving. Orbiting of the moon around the earth, and then the earth around the sun, and the sun in its own path or orbit, whatever it has. How all of that, the regularity in the cycle of day and night and the seasons, how it is incredibly important for human life. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ, and he subjected to you the night and the day. They're all at your service. وَآتَاكُم مِّن كُلِّ مَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُ, and on top of that, he gave you from all of what you asked him for. He responds to your du'as. وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ, and if you were to count the favors of Allah, لَا تُحْصُوهَا, you will never be able to enumerate them. These are just the big ones being put in front of you. But if you start to sit down to see how many ways, both subtle and grand, that he's blessed you, that he's favored you, it's only when something of that is taken away, something minute, something little, something minuscule from you, from somebody else, is when you notice how important it was. You only have to have a toothache to realize what it means not to have a toothache and what goes around in not and being healthy. Anyone who's ever any of the doctors, when you study how diseases come around and how they develop, it's really a wonder how we're not all sick, how we're actually alive. When you look at how cancers develop in particular, you get to realize how systematic, how uh, purposeful, how purposefully a cancer has developed, that there are so many obstacles in place that the cancerous process has to bypass in order to actually become an entity, a disease giving entity. And how all of those processes, so microscopic, so deeply cellular, that are in place to make sure that the growth that takes place is healthy growth and not a cancerous growth. إن الإنسان لظلوم كفار. For sure, the human being is incredibly unjust and ungrateful. وإذ قال إبراهيم. And when Ibrahim said, رب اجعل هذا البلد آمنا, my Rabb, make this city peaceful, make this city secure. وَجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ, and prevent me as well as my children from worshipping idols. رَبِّ إِنَّهُنَّ أَضْلَلْنَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ النَّاسِ. My Rabb, these idols have misguided a great number of human beings. فَمَنْ تَبِعَنِي فَإِنَّهُ مِنِّي. So whoever follows me is from me. وَمَنْ عَصَانِي فَإِنَّكَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And whoever disobeys me, you are incredibly forgiving and merciful. رَبَّنَا إِنِّي أَسْكَنْتُ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي. Our Rabb, I have settled from my offspring بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ, in a barren valley, عِنْدَ بَيْتِكَ الْمُحَرَّمِ, close to your sacred house. رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمَ الصَّلَاةِ. Our Rabb, so that they establish prayer. The journey of Ibrahim alayhi salam, his confrontations with his family, with his society, with Namrud, with the ruler of his day, of his area, of his country, was such. And then even after being exiled from there, after being thrown in the fire, after being kicked out of his house, after all of that, the recognition, and then whatever happened after the exile, his encounter with the people along the way, with the people of Lut, and Lut alayhi salam being sent to Sodom and Gomorrah, and then the instances that he had with that other evil intentioned king along the way, all of that. Pretty much the only way forward for his legacy is to settle his family down, or at least one part of his family down, in a barren valley, in a valley devoid of trees, of vegetation, of even water. The parables that we just got. And for him to have that trust in Allah, for him to be so well grounded in that kalimatan tayyibatan, that pure word, that even in this action, even in this sacrifice, even in this incredible risk that he took, it bore fruit. It bore fruit. That he sees, alayhi salam, that his vision for Tawheed, his vision for humanity, it's going to take generations for it to bear fruit. And he's sowing the seeds literally in a barren valley. In a valley that, for all practical purposes, from whatever you can assess, it is contrary to life. But the strength of the kalimatan tayyibatan. So, Ismail alayhi salam, Hajara radiallahu ta'ala anha, being left in the barren valley of what was later to become Mecca. رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ. Why? So, my Rabb, they can establish prayer. فَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ. So make hearts among people inclined towards them. It is incredible how that barren valley devoid of life is now the center for so many people who want to visit it. It's always crowded, or it has been until the past year or so. Always crowded. The dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam as to how that barrenness was turned to life. وَارْزُقْهُم مِّنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ, and provide them with fruits. Where in the world are fruits going to come from in the middle of the desert that nothing grows in? And yet you go there and you see that you'll find fruits there that you won't find anywhere else in the world. وَارْزُقْهُم مِّنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْكُرُونَ. Perhaps they may be grateful. رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ تَعْلَمُ مَا نُخْفِي وَمَا نُعْلِنُ. My Rabb, our Rabb, you know what we conceal and what we reveal. وَمَا يَخْفَى عَلَى اللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. And nothing is hidden from Allah. فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. Neither in the earth nor in the sky. الحمد لله الذي وهب لي على الكبر إسماعيل وإسحاق. So all praise and gratitude is for Allah who gifted me in my old age Ismail and Ishaq. Now the legacy of Tawheed is to continue from from these two sons. Generations are going to come from them. Inna Rabbi la sami'u dua. For sure, my Rabb hears my supplication. He heard my dua. He is the hearer of supplications, of my supplication. Rabbi ja'alni muqim as-salati wa min dhurriyati. My Rabb, make me. And again, this is him making this dua pretty much towards the end of his life. Doesn't take all his sacrifices for granted. There is so much more that still needs to be done. And this being a person who establishes salah, it is an active process. So my Rabb, make me one who establishes salah and from my offspring. Rabbana wa taqabbal du'a. Our Rabb, accept my supplication. ربنا اغفر لي ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين. Our Rabb, forgive me, my parents, and the believers. يوم يقوم الحساب. The day the accountability will take place. As I mean, what you see, the hilm of Ibrahim alayhi salam, he's been turned out of his house by his father, rejected, cursed, abused, tormented. His father did not have his back when his people turned on him. Yet, Ibrahim alayhi salam has that capacity to still look at him with gratitude, to still look towards him with prayer. That years later, he still, and Allah has to stop him from making this prayer. Then no more. Now you need to know that there is no good there. This recognition that Ibrahim alayhi salam has for his future generations, how far ahead he's looking. We don't do that. Hardly do our children feature in our du'as. And our children's children, if and when we see them in front of us. Forget about generations later. Grandchildren, great grandchildren, great great grandchildren. Ibrahim alayhi salam's dua is for the coming of Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who was great 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 grandchild. I don't even know how many greats I said. Who does that? And yet this relationship of Tawheed with Allah is such that it leads to this valuing of relationships so far ahead, so far ahead of children who are of no apparent benefit to you. They're not going to be with you. They're not going to be there in your old age. You're not going to be around. And he knows it. And he's good with it. But he's worried about them nevertheless. وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ غَافِلًا عَمَّا يَعْمَلُ الظَّالِمُونَ. And never ever think of that Allah is unaware of what these unjust people are doing. إِنَّمَا يُؤَخِّرُهُمْ لِيَوْمٍ. He is deferring them for a day. تَشْخَصُ فِيهِ الْأَبْصَارِ. The day that eyes will be petrified. They will be so much filled with horror, with fear, that it's gonna justify the look that they have in their eyes. The fear of the day is going to be reflected. مُهْطِعِينَ. They will be running in terror. مُقْنِعِي رُؤُوسِهِمْ. With their heads raised up. لَا يَرْتَدُّ إِلَيْهِمْ طَرْفُهُمْ. Their gaze will not return to them. وَأَفْئِدَتُهُمْ هَوَاء. And their hearts will be blank. وَأَنذِرِ النَّاسَ يَوْمَ يَأْتِيهِمُ الْعَذَابُ. So warn humanity of the day when the punishment will come to them. فَيَقُولُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا. And that day, those who were unjust, they will say, رَبَّنَا أَخِّرْنَا إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ قَرِيبٍ. Our Rabb, give us a little more time, some more space, some respite. نُجِبْ دَعْوَتَكَ. We will respond to your call. وَنَتَّبِعِ الرُّسُلَ. And we will follow the messengers. أَوَلَمْ تَكُونُوا أَقْسَمْتُم مِّن قَبْلُ. But the reply will be given. Are you not the same people who used to swear earlier on, مَا لَكُم مِّن زَوَالٍ, that there will be no end to you, your life, your wealth, your power? Are you not the same people who had this delusion of invincibility, that nothing can come close to you, that there is no downfall? وَسَكَنْتُمْ فِي مَسَاكِنِ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ. And you lived in the houses of those who were unjust to themselves. Just reflect on where you're living. Just that same air that you're breathing, it was being breathed by somebody else. That same house, somebody else was living there. That same food that you're eating now is from the dead remains of people who are no longer here. The earth does that. And then that becomes not just the house that you're living in, even the body as your house. That house is your life. It was somebody else at some point. Kind of scary. Those people who were unjust to themselves did not live up to there's the legacy of Ibrahim. And then there was those people. وَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمْ كَيْفَ فَعَلْنَا بِهِمْ. And it was clear to you how we dealt with them. They were destroyed. وَضَرَبْنَا لَكُمُ الْأَمْثَالِ. And struck for you many examples. So many life experiences. So many dead nations who were very strong, very powerful, very rich, and yet they're no longer there. How many of these incredibly great people are no longer there? They thought they were invincible at one point, as much as you do today. They were young, they were zealous, they were full of energy, full of vigor. They had all of that. Now they don't. Now they're not there. What does that tell you? وَقَدْ مَكَرُوا مَكْرَهُمْ. They plotted their schemes. وَعِنْدَ اللَّهِ مَكْرُهُمْ. But with Allah is their scheme. وَإِنْ كَانَ مَكْرُهُمْ لِتَزُولَ مِنْهُ الْجِبَالِ. Even though their scheming was such that mountains could move thereby. That's how strong they were. That's how powerful they were. That's how they were able to harness the forces of nature, literally moving mountains. And yet they're no longer there. فَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ مُخْلِفَ وَعْدِهِ رُسُلًا. Do not think that Allah is going to betray His promise to the messengers. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ ذُو انْتِقَامٍ. Allah is most definitely powerful. He is the owner of retribution, of recompensation, of taking revenge. يَوْمَ تُبَدَّلُ الْأَرْضُ غَيْرَ الْأَرْضِ وَالسَّمَاوَاتِ. The day the earth will be changed to another earth and the heavens. وَبَرَزُوا لِلَّهِ الْوَاحِدِ الْقَهَّارِ. And they will appear before Allah, the one, the irresistible. وَتَرَى الْمُجْرِمِينَ يَوْمَئِذٍ. And you will see the criminals that day, مُقَرَّنِينَ فِي الْأَصْفَادِ, linked together in chains. سَرَابِيلُهُم مِّن قَطِرَانٍ. Their garments will be made of tar. وَتَغْشَى وُجُوهَهُمُ النَّارِ. And the fire will cover their faces. Linked with each other, people who can't stand each other, but because they lived in the footsteps of each other, are linked together in chains, dragging each other down, stumbling upon each other. What clothes are they wearing? It's tar. What else is going on? Their faces are covered in fire. لِيَجْزِيَ اللَّهُ كُلَّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ. So that Allah may reward, quote unquote, sarcasm, every individual according to what he earned in terms of deeds. In Allah sari'ul hisab. And most definitely Allah is swift in accountability. هذا بلاغ للناس. This is a clear message for humanity. وَلِيُنذَرُوا بِهِ. That they get warned through it. وَلِيَعْلَمُوا. And let them know أَنَّمَا هُوَ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ. That there is only one ilah. وَلِيَذَّكَّرَ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. And so as to remind the people of understanding. Starting with Surah Hijr. Again, this is going to be a very different surah in the sense that most of the surahs that we have seen so far are from, even if they are Makkan, they're from the late Makkan period. A lot of the Madani ones we've already covered, but the bulk of the Madani Quran we have covered. But even the Makkan ones that we saw were from the pretty much the last couple of years of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Mecca. Surah Hijr is different. It's from the earlier part. It's from the perhaps the first 4 years of Mecca. There's a lot of commentators. It's not easy to place the Meccan surahs in terms of their chronology as to where they would exactly fit in. Um, we can't really say for sure for most of them, right? But there are hints, there are signs that give us an idea. And so this, with respect to its subject matter, with respect to even the style of the ayat, the way, the rhythm of the surah, the way it flows, it is more akin to the earlier ones, the ones that you will see in the last group towards the end of the Mus'haf, right? And that serves a lot of different purposes in terms of why is the Mus'haf arranged this way. For one thing, it's a change of flavor, that it changes um, the way you hear. Monotony sort of gets to you, and with this you see all of a sudden a transition, right? So this surah is Surah Al-Hijr, short surah, of the shortest, perhaps the shortest surah that we have come across since Fatiha. So that's Surah Hijr, beginning right away with it. Bismillah, Auzubillah Shaitan Rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alif Lam Ra. Tilka ayatul kitabi wa Qur'anim mubin. These are the ayat of the book and a clear Qur'an. رُبَمَا يَوَدُّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْ كَانُوا مُسْلِمِينَ. It may well be those who disbelieve will wish that they were Muslims. And this also goes into how the Quran is distributed. We know of the distribution of the Quran in terms of surahs, but then of course we're also aware of the distribution of Quran in this form of uh, juz, or the separe, as we call them. And the distribution in the form of surahs, of course, that's as divine as it gets. It's from Allah. That's how Jibreel alayhi salam instructed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to arrange the ayat. That's how they were recited to him, and that is how he communicated them to us, and they're preserved as such. As far as the juz are concerned, as far as the separe are concerned, that's for a very later time period. And it seems to be pretty arbitrary. Arbitrary in the sense of theme and subject matter, but what was the measure or the standard according to which this division was done was the length of what is to be recited. So interestingly enough, رُبَمَا يَوَدُّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, the second ayah of the surah, falls in the next juz. It's in the next separa. The first ayah, Alif Lam Ra Tilka Ayatul Kitabi wa Qur'anim Mubin, is in the previous ayah. So the chopping was such that the second ayah and the rest of the surah fell in the and in the next juz, in the next tipara, and we're so mashallah tabarakallah um, disciplined or respectful of our tradition. We never ever bothered, or never dared rather, to change that. It has been what it has been, and it remains to be as such. So رُبَمَا يَوَدُّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْ كَانُوا مُسْلِمِينَ. It may well be those who disbelieved will wish that they were Muslims. ذَرْهُمْ يَأْكُلُوا وَيَتَمَتَّعُوا. So leave them alone to eat and enjoy. It's their lifestyle. Eat, sleep, repeat, right? And just put a little bit of video games and other games and, enjoyment. That's what they live for. Let them let them be. Let them continue with this. But that's not how it's always going to be. This clear Quran, this recital, something that is to be repeated, recited again and again, from this these beautiful ayat of the book, that's being ignored. There will come a time that they will regret this. Regret is but inevitable. وَيُلْهِهِمُ الْأَمَلِ. And let false hopes delude them. Something in their head, some assumptions that it's all going to be this way, that this is it, this is never going to end. مَا لَهَا مِن زَوَالٍ. They're going to have it forever. They've earned it, another strong, and that's how it's going to be forever and ever. Fair enough. If that's the kind of hopes, these false hopes they have, فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ. They will soon realize. وَمَا أَهْلَكْنَا مِنْ قَرْيَةٍ. And we never destroyed a town إِلَّا وَلَهَا كِتَابٌ مَعْلُومٌ. Except that there was a known decree for it from before. مَا تَسْبِقُ مِنْ أُمَّةٍ أَجَلَهَا. Neither a community has been able to hasten its ordained time. They haven't been able to bring it earlier. وَمَا يَسْتَأْخِرُونَ. Nor have they been able to postpone it. Whatever Allah has determined for it, wherever Allah has put out as possibilities for when that end is going to come, that's what it is. وَقَالُوا يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِي نُزِّلَ عَلَيْهِ الذِّكْرِ. And they would say, hey, you, the one to whom the reminder has been revealed, إِنَّكَ لَمَجْنُونَ. We think that you are possessed or that you're crazy. They wouldn't say we think, they'd say, إِنَّكَ لَمَجْنُونَ. You are possessed. You are crazy. That, and again, this is another indication that this is from the earlier Meccan period. These slurs, this verbal abuse, was more of this nature. This was their gut reaction to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that they then held on to. And they would use this, reiterate this. Some would even say this out of sympathy. It's okay. It's okay for you to be unwell, possessed. We know some very good exorcists. We can get you help. But then that was a minority. For the most part, it was abuse. Yo, you're crazy. You think you have this dhikr, this reminder that's come from God. لو ما تأتينا بالملائكة. Why don't you bring us angels? إن كنت من الصادقين, if you really are truthful. ما ننزل الملائكة. Allah says we don't send angels إلا بالحق, except with divine judgment, except with the truth, except that when that comes, that's it. وما كانوا إذا منظرين, and then they're not going to be given any more time. إنا نحن نزلنا الذكر, and it is definitely us, we who have revealed this dhikr, and the Quran refers to itself as a dhikr multiple times. When Quran says dhikr, it is usually referring to itself. In places, it's referring to the Torah and the Injil as well. Ahlul dhikr, they're called people of dhikr. In any case, we have revealed this dhikr, وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ, and for sure we are going to protect it. So yes, that is talking about the protection of the word of the Quran, but more than that, the word is to be protected. But the protection, what it entails, is not just the order, not just the words, but its value. For when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being abused, when he is being tormented, and he hardly has a handful of followers, probably by the time of the revelation of these ayat, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's followers are under 10. That's very likely, but there's no more than that. If more than 10, then under 20 for sure. And that's all the number that he has with him in all of Makkah. In all of Makkah. And so, is this word going to last? Is this Quran going to survive? Is this message going to be established in any way? Is this going to continue beyond the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Is he even going to carry on with this? Persist with this in the face of all of the opposition that he has? Allah says, yeah. So the confidence that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being, what is his concern? He's being abused, he's being rejected, he's being tortured. Those who have the guts to publicly accept that they believe in him, they're being subjected to all kinds of abuses and tortures. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is concerned about, am I going to be able to give the message its due such that it has the impact that it's supposed to have? Or will it be lost? We see that he's personally hurt as well. And that consolation also comes, but that consolation comes to the very end of the surah. The first consolation that he's given is keep at it. It's going to be protected. What is going to be protected is the Quran, yes, but for the Quran to be protected, Rasulullah is going to be protected. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to prevail against all odds. I mean, it is inconceivable how much the odds are against him at the time of the revelation of these ayat. And so the conviction with which this ayah is saying, Inna nahnu nazzalna, there's like at least 3 times that us, we, us, that's what Allah is. So much, it's us who's revealed it. It's we who've done this. It's we're going to. And then again, وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ, and we will, letting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam know, don't you worry. Don't you worry, we got this. We did not reveal this Quran for nothing. We're not going to let it go to waste. We're not going to let you go to waste. This has a future. This is the future. This is destiny. Allah is promising that. So the words are going to be protected, yes. The message is going to be protected, yes. Its impact is guaranteed. It is not for nothing. It is going to find its destiny. وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. And we're going to take care of it. We're going to protect it. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ. And we have already sent messages before you. فِي شِيَعِ الْأَوَّلِينَ. Among the factions of earlier nations. وَمَا يَأْتِيهِم مِّن رَسُولٍ. And never was it that there came to them a messenger إِلَّا كَانُوا بِهِ يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ, except that they always mocked him. They always made fun of him. كَذَلِكَ نَسْلُكُهُ فِي قُلُوبِ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. And that is how we let this enter into the hearts of the criminals. They feel that the ayat of Allah, the way they respond to them, the way the ayat trigger their defenses, is such that they have to make a mockery of it. Because if you don't make a mockery of it, you have to take it seriously. And what it demands of you when you take it seriously, you're not willing to do. It is so much easier to just joke it away, to mock it away as something insignificant, as something not worthy of being taken seriously. لا يؤمنون به. They will not believe in it. وقد خلت سنة الأولين. سنة الأولين, as has been the practice of the previous ones. We're not surprised. Truth is rejected. Foremost, the gut reaction of people to whom truth is presented is that they reject it. وَلَوْ فَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَابًا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. And if we were to open the gates of heaven over them, فَظَلُّوا فِيهِ يَعْرُجُونَ. And they even start ascending through it. لَقَالُوا. Even then they would say, إِنَّمَا سُكِّرَتْ أَبْصَارُنَا. Our eyes have been bedazzled. بَلْ نَحْنُ قَوْمٌ مَسْحُورُونَ. Rather, we're under the influence of magic. Even then they're not going to believe it. You think the recitation of the Quran and when it is being presented to them not accepting it is surprising. They're the people who, even if Allah were to take them on something of a mi'raj, they wouldn't believe that. They would not believe that. وَلَقَدْ جَعَلْنَا فِي السَّمَاءِ بُرُوجًا. And we have indeed decked out the heavens with constellations. وَزَيَّنَّاهَا لِلنَّاظِرِينَ. And we have beautified them for observers, for people to see. وَحَفِظْنَاهَا مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ الرَّجِيمٍ. And we have secured it from every rejected devil. إِلَّا مَنِ اسْتَرَقَ السَّمْعَ. Except the one who steals a listen. فَأَتْبَعَهُ شِهَابٌ مُبِينٌ. And there follows him a clear burning flame. وَالْأَرْضَ مَدَدْنَاهَا. And the earth we've spread it out. Particularly so, and we learned this in Surah Jinn and other places in the Quran as well, as to how the heavens decked out with stars and the protection that is accorded to the movement of wahi and other commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that in the angelic realm, however that works, we don't have any conception of it. We don't have any imagination of it even. It is what it is. It is how it's represented. But particularly with respect to the Quran, how that protection from demonic interpolation, from demonic involvement in the message itself, how so much of when the Quran talks about stars in the universe or stars for people on earth, and how those stars are a source of guidance, they tell you the way. That analogy is for the ayat of the Quran as well. That those ayat are for you to know your way in the darkness, so for you to know where to go. And they're decorated as well. There is an aesthetic dimension that Allah takes very, very seriously. Beautification of the Quran and of the stars in the sky is something that Allah is very proud of. It is reflective of His attributes, and that He represents as such. And then, of course, the protection from the demonic in the affairs of the world. Nevertheless, the demonic presence being established and the threat, especially to us as non-prophets, the protection, not so much. We are vulnerable, and that's going to open up in a little bit with a reference to the story of Adam alayhi salam. وَالْأَرْضَ مَدَدْنَاهَا. And the earth we spread it out. وَأَلْقَيْنَا فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ. And we set in it mountains. وَأَنْبَتْنَا فِيهَا. And we produced from it مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ مَوْزُونٍ. Every well-balanced thing. وَجَعَلْنَا لَكُمْ فِيهَا مَعَايِشْ. And we have provided for you livelihood therein. وَمَن لَسْتُمْ لَهُ بِرَازِقِينَ. And also we've provided you those whom you don't provide for. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ. And there is nothing إِلَّا عِندَنَا خَزَائِنُهُ. Except that with us are its storage houses, its stores, whatever is necessary, needed for it. وَمَا نُنَزِّلُهُ. And we do not send it down إِلَّا بِقَدَرٍ مَعْلُومٍ. Except in appropriate measure. وَأَرْسَلْنَا الرِّيَاحَ لَوَاقِحَ. And we send fertilizing winds. إِلَّا بِقَدَرٍ مَعْلُومٍ. وَأَرْسَلْنَا الرِّيَاحَ لَوَاقِحَ. And we send fertilizing winds. How are the winds fertilizing? Winds that bring the clouds and winds that carry the pollen. فَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً. And then we pour down water from the sky. فَأَسْقَيْنَاكُمُوهُ. Which we make you drink. وَمَا أَنْتُمْ لَهُ بِخَازِنِينَ. And you are not its retainers. وَإِنَّا لَنَحْنُ نُحْيِي وَنُمِيتُ. And it is definitely us, we who bring life and give death. وَنَحْنُ الْوَارِثُونَ. And we are the inheritors. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْنَا الْمُسْتَقْدِمِينَ مِنْكُمْ. And we know your previous generations fully well. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْنَا الْمُسْتَأْخِرِينَ. And we also know your later ones. وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ هُوَ يَحْشُرُهُمْ. And in fact, your Rabb will gather all of them. إِنَّهُ حَكِيمٌ عَلِيمٌ. And indeed, he is wise and aware. Also, another way of reading these are these mustaqdimin. They can talk about, it may be referring to previous generations. It may be talking about those who gave priority to the message, responded, the first responders, the sabiqun al-awwalun, who took Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam seriously and accepted him, endorsed him, supported him when nobody else did. And then there's those who didn't, who put it off. It wasn't a priority for them. And they may have come later. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ. And we have created the human being مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ مِنْ حَمَإٍ مَسْنُونٍ. From the clay of black altered mud, which starts smelling. It's fermented. And fermentation is a sign of bacterial life. Fermentation is the very beginning of cellular life, pretty much. And how from that, the emergence of more complex life is alluded to. وَالْجَانَّ خَلَقْنَاهُ مِنْ قَبْلِ. And prior to that, we created the jinn, مِنْ نَارِ السَّمُومِ. From the invisible flame of fire. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ. So human beings and jinnat and now angels. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ. And when your Rabb, Ya Rasulullah, said to the angels, إِنِّي خَالِقٌ بَشَرٌ. إِنِّي خَالِقٌ بَشَرًا. I am going to create a human being. مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ مِنْ حَمَإٍ مَسْنُونٍ. From the clay of black altered mud. فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ. So when I have fashioned it perfectly, when I have beautified it, fashioned it to the dot, وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. And when I have blown into it from my ruh, فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. Then fall down prostrating yourselves before him. So this black altered mud that the human being is, and then the blowing of Allah's ruh. Now again, inconceivable for what it is to have any material conception of it. To consider this like this real, this cloudy, ghostly substance, these platonic spirits or something, that is what God is composed of, and then it's blown into human beings, that's uncalled for. It doesn't, it's not warranted as such. That's too, taking it too far. Taking it too far. If we were to understand it literally, if we were to conceive of it in that sense, it would be problematic. For one thing, it results in a dualistic picture of the human being, spirit, matter, soul, body, and then this absolute cleavage between the two and how are the two interacting and a whole bunch of issues. Nevertheless, this divine essence or the ruh that makes this black altered mud something emergently different from what it was before. Something that is uh, now, and we can understand for this to be all of that which makes human beings unique. It makes human beings human and distinct from all that is animal. For whatever we can understand, that black altered mud is what the rest of the animals are composed of as well. That's organic matter, right? But then more than simple organic matter, there is this distinction, these specific attributes, qualities, abilities that human beings have that animals don't. Animals can't. This leap that you see in uh, human beings having the capacity for language, human beings having this understanding of past, present, future, human beings having this capacity for creativity, human beings having this capacity for wahi, for intuition, human beings having this capacity for to choose their response. So much of what human beings can do, what non-humans cannot, non-human animals cannot. And that is what distinguishes the black altered mud such that it is worthy of an angelic prostration. That this nafakhtu fihi min ruhi, blowing into it from my ruh, what it gives the human being is something that is worthy of an angelic prostration. فَسَجَدَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ كُلُّهُمْ أَجْمَعُونَ. And so the angels prostrated, all of them all together, إِلَّا Iblis, except Iblis. أَبَى أَن يَكُونَ مَعَ السَّاجِدِينَ. He refused to join those prostrated. We know he was a jinn, but we know he was an incredibly righteous jinn, to the point of having been elevated to the rank of angels. قَالَ يَا Iblis. Allah said, Iblis, Malak, what's wrong with you? Allah takuna ma'a sajidin, that you did not join those who prostrated. Qala, he said, Lam akul li asjuda li basharin. He said, I'm not going to prostrate before a human being. خلقته من صلصال من حمأ مسنون, whom you have created out of the clay of an altered black mud. Again, Iblis's contention is that this is black altered mud. I am fire, fire better, mud not good. I don't want to play this game. I'm out. I don't want to listen to you. Doesn't work for me. What he's leaving out is that nafakhtu fihi min ruhi, that which distinguishes the human being, that which is particularly human. So human, or so this element of, or this, again, it's very difficult to use words when talking about this that may give a very different message. But this nafakhtu fihi min ruhi dimension that shaitan neglects, what Allah highlights, that I am going to blow into it from my ruh, that whatever is so divine that Allah attributes it to himself so closely, that this is my ruh, from my ruh that I'm blowing into the human being. Shaitan ignores that completely. And he would not want anything better than human beings ignoring that completely as well. For human beings to look at themselves as nothing more than salsalim min hama'im masnoon, the clay, the black altered mud, something utterly determined, something absolutely controlled, something utterly helpless, powerless, without any freedom, without any freedom. See, mud is what it's molded out to be. There is nothing that it can itself do. It is dependent on all that is external to it, for how it is shaped, for how it is to look like, to be like. It is what it is. There's nothing it can do. It is utterly determined, utterly controlled. It has no self-consciousness, self-awareness, self-control. To whatever level it may have consciousness, it doesn't have it to the point of being able to determine its own ends, determine its directions, to make choices. And so whenever we are fatalistic, and when we refer to ourselves, when we're talking about ourselves, whenever we are giving up that freedom that we possess that is so essential of being human, we are being demonic in that fatalism, in that determinism, in saying that I can't do anything about it. This is just who I am, and that's it. For there to be a full stop at the end of that statement is looking at ourselves the way Shaitan saw us, the way Shaitan refused to prostrate, to not acknowledge that potential for changing, for growing, for changing and growing the way we choose to. And therefore, if we look at ourselves the way Shaitan looked at us, then we deny that right of being worthy of an angelic prostration, the sajda of the angels. And we affirm Shaitan's hypothesis about us, that we're no good. And he would want nothing better, nothing more than to come at it from whatever direction, philosophical, scientific, religious, for us to understand for ourselves to be nothing more than puppets. Now, understandably, our freedom has its limits. We can't fly. We can't go off saying that, oh my God, there's this, I can do anything. And we just jump off of a building. Not good, not smart. We are clay as well. We do have limits. We do have boundaries that we have to respect, that we look to grow out of in a disciplined fashion. That when we talk about the human being, take walking, for example. When human beings walk, walking is an interplay of the limits that we have, the gravity that limits us, and then the freedom that we have, that despite that limitation or that pull of gravity, actually because of that pull of gravity, we're able to walk in a particular direction, control which direction we walk in, jump a tad bit. And so many other avenues of our life where we have these limitations, where we have these boundaries, where there is stuff that we don't have control over. To recognize that is equally important as recognizing the freedom that we have within those boundaries. And then, given the time, given the right understanding, we can push those limits as well. Gradually, never suddenly, never abruptly, but human beings have learned to fly. Not by jumping off of a building, but through systematic processes of pretty much generations that have allowed commercial flying. We have that capacity as well. But Iblis would have us not look towards that at all and see ourselves as nothing more than stimulus response, or rather stimulus reaction features. No space in between, no choice, no reflection, and therefore no morality, no accountability, no responsibility. قال فاخرج منها. Allah said, get out of here. فإنك الرجيم, for you are an outcast. وإن عليك اللعنة, and upon you is a curse. إلى يوم الدين, till the day of compensation. قال ربي, he said, my Rabb, فأنظرني إلى يوم يبعثون. Give me time until the day they will be raised again. All, Allah said, فَإِنَّكَ مِنَ الْمُنظَرِينَ, you are of those given time. إِلَى يَوْمِ الْوَقْتِ الْمَعْلُومِ, until a day which is appointed, the time for which is appointed. قَالَ رَبِّي, Shaitan said, my Rabb, بِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي, you misled me, and because you misled me, again, his fatalism, you misled me. I was doing all right. You brought this on me. لَأُزَيِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ, I will create attraction for them on earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just started the surah by telling us how He had made the stars attractive. That this aesthetic element within creation is His doing, is a reflection of His attributes. Shaitan says, I'm going to take that a little too far. I'm going to make that all of what they see, such that what they want is immediate gratification of that instinct, of that pleasure principle that I want for them to live by. This hedonistic lifestyle, this pleasure, power, wealth, here, now, all of it, as much of it as just this and nothing else. That lifestyle. وَلَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ, and I will mislead all of them. إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصِينَ, except those chosen slaves of yours, or chosen ibad of yours. Them. But the rest, all of them. قَالَ هَذَا صِرَاطٌ عَلَيَّ مُسْتَقِيمٌ. Allah said, this is a straight path. What? This ibadah, this connection, relationship, this Rabb-Abd relationship that leads to me. Inna ibadi, as far as my ibad are concerned, laysa laka alayhim sultan, you have no authority over them. Illa man ittaba'aka min al-ghawin, except of the misled ones, those who themselves follow you. Shaitan's insistence on Allah misguiding human beings, and Allah misguiding him, and that human beings being worthy of nothing more than that, and his insistence that that's all there is to them, that they too are going to be this way. Allah insisting that no, if they choose to follow you, they do that of their own accord, of their own choice. And if they choose that, then that's what it is. That is going to be their end. وَإِنَّ جَهَنَّمَ لَمَوْعِدُهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ, and hell is the promised place for all of them. لَهَا سَبْعَةُ أَبْوَابٍ, it has 7 gates. لِكُلِّ بَابٍ مِّنْهُمْ جُزْءٌ مَقْسُومٌ, each gate will be assigned a separate group among them. All the different ways you can mislead them, all the different ways that humanity can follow into the footsteps of Shaitan, Allah says that is what it is. Those are the gates of hellfire. Innal muttaqina fi jannatin wa uyun. As for the people of taqwa, they're going to be in the midst of gardens and springs. Udkhuluha bi salamin aminin. Enter them in peace, tranquility, and security. Udkhuluha bi salamin aminin. How Shaitan wants all the attraction and allurement on earth, here and now, with nothing hereafter. And how we want all the salam and the amn and the jannat and the uyun here and now. وَنَزَعْنَا مَا فِي صُدُورِهِم مِّنْ غِلٍّ, and we will have removed from their hearts any ill feelings for one another on the day of in paradise, between all the people of paradise, given that they would have had that to varying degrees in dunya, inevitably. إِخْوَانًا عَلَى سُرُرٍ مُتَقَابِلٍ, brothers reclining on thrones facing each other. لا يمسهم فيها نصب. They will neither face any fatigue in there. وما هم منها بمخرجين. Neither will they be turned out from there. نبئ عبادي أني. So let my ibad know about me, Ya Rasulullah. أنا الغفور الرحيم. I am extremely forgiving and always merciful. وأن عذابي هو العذاب الأليم. And for sure that my punishment, it's a very severe, very painful punishment. Let them know me as such. وَنَبِّئْهُمْ عَنْ ضَيْفِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. And let them know about the guests of Ibrahim. إِذْ دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ فَقَالُوا السَّلَامَ. As they entered upon him and they offered salam. فقال Ibrahim said, إِنَّ مِنْكُمْ وَجِلُونَ. We feel scared of you. قَالُوا لَا تَوْجَلْ. They said, don't be scared. إِنَّا نُبَشِّرُكَ بِغُلَامٍ عَلِيمٍ. We give you the good news of a learned boy. قَالَ أَبَشَّرْتُمُونِي. Ibrahim responded, are you giving me the good news? عَلَى أَمَّ سَنِيَ الْكِبَرُ. Despite the fact that I've been taken over by old age. فَبِمَ تُبَشِّرُونَ. What sort of a good news is this that you've brought? قَالُوا بَشَّرْنَاكَ بِالْحَقِّ. They said, we are giving you this good news in truth. فَلَا تَكُن مِّنَ الْقَانِطِينَ. Do not be of those who despair. We've seen this story mentioned prior to this as well, in which the wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam expresses her amazement. Ibrahim alayhi salam did so as well. How is this possible? How is this happening? I'm old. Angel said, this is it. This is what it is. As far as haqq is concerned, and the propagation of haqq requires this intervention, this amr of Allah, so as to continue the purpose behind creation to begin with. فلا تكن من القانتين. قال, Ibrahim said, وَمَنْ يَقْنَطُ مِنْ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّهِ إِلَّا الضَّالُّونَ. And who despairs of the mercy of his Rabb except those who are astray. Ibrahim alayhi salam checking himself. قال, Ibrahim said, فَمَا خَطْبُكُمْ أَيُّهَا الْمُرْسَلُونَ. What are you up to, O messengers? There has to be something else. Is that all you need? That can't have been all that you came to tell me. You're here for, it looks like you have some other affair, other business to attend to. And again, how this coming of the angels is reflective of those, the adhab of Allah, the adhabun alim, when Rasulullah is told, Nabbi ibadi anni, fa inni ghafurur rahim. That side, those attributes we see reflected in what the good news Ibrahim alayhi salam is given. And then, wa anna adhabi, fa huwa al-adhabul alim. And my adhab, it is going to be huwa al-adhabul alim. It is a painful punishment. That being shared now with Ibrahim with respect to the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, the people of Lut alayhi salam. قالوا إنا أرسلنا إلى قوم مجرمين. They said, we have been sent to a bunch of criminals, إلا آل Lut, except the family of Lut. إنا لمنجوهم أجمعين. We're going to save all of them. All of the followers of Lut alayhi salam, they're going to be saved. إلا امرأته, except his wife. So there's exceptions across the board. Exceptions to those who are going to get punished because they're good people. They're followers of Lut and they're the family of Lut alayhi salam. But being the family of Lut alayhi salam is not a guarantee for protection if, again, the choices that people made. Ibrahim alayhi salam's choices that resulted in the news that he got from the angel such that he's getting children in old age. Choices that the people of Lut made such that they're being cut off. They're being destroyed. Choices that the family of Lut made, followers, those who believed in him, that they're being saved. Choices that the wife of Lut alayhi salam made, that she chose not to be of the Ali Lut, and she followed in the footsteps of the people. Again, across the board, choices, exceptions, no fixed patterns, reflecting that particular human capacity that Shaitan refused to see. إِلَّا امْرَأَتَهُ قَدَّرْنَا إِنَّهَا لَمِنَ الْغَابِرِينَ. We have decreed that she is going to be with those who are staying behind. فَلَمَّا جَاءَ آلَ لُوطٍ الْمُرْسَلُونَ. So when the messengers arrived at the household of Lut, قَالَ إِنَّكُمْ قَوْمٌ مُنْكَرُونَ. Lut alayhi salam said, you are strangers. قَالُوا بَلْ جِئْنَاكَ بِمَا كَانُوا فِيهِ يَمْتَرُونَ. They said, we have come with what they have been disputing about, the punishment. وَآتَيْنَاكَ بِالْحَقِّ. And we have come to you with truth. Again, the meaningfulness of the azab that comes to nations. In humanity is not a joke. It's not without a purpose. You can't take your life just as it is without recognizing your responsibility of taking it in a particular direction. And so those who don't, they are a burden. They're dead weight. And you got to get rid of dead weight. And so the people of Lut alayhi salam are being gotten rid of. وَإِنَّا لَصَادِقُونَ. And without a doubt, we are truthful. فَأَسْرِ بِأَهْلِكَ. So move out with your household بِقِطْعٍ مِّنَ اللَّيْلِ, during the last hours of the night. وَاتَّبِعْ أَدْبَارَهُمْ. And follow behind them. وَلَا يَلْتَفِتْ مِنْكُمْ أَحَدٌ. And do not let any of you look back. وَامْضُوا حَيْثُ تُؤْمَرُونَ. And do exactly as you're being commanded. وَقَضَيْنَا إِلَيْهِ ذَلِكَ الْأَمْرِ. And we revealed this decree to Lut, أَنَّ دَابِرَ هَؤُلَاءِ. that the very roots of these people مَقْطُوعٌ. was going to be cut off. مُصْبِحِينَ. by the morning. وَجَاءَ أَهْلُ الْمَدِينَةِ يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ. And the residents of the town approached celebrating. قَالَ إِنَّ هَؤُلَاءِ الضَّيْفِ. What are they celebrating? They see young men. And they're like, it's party time. Lut alayhi salam said, no, these are my guests. فَلَا تَفْضَحُونَ. Do not disgrace me. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُخْزُونَ. Have the taqwa of Allah. Do not humiliate me. قَالُوا وَلَمْ نَنْهَكَ عَنِ الْعَالَمِينَ. They said, have we not forbidden you from people? Did we not tell you not to meet people? What are you doing out here? قَالَ هَؤُلَاءِ بَنَاتِي. Lut alayhi salam said, here are my daughters. إِن كُنْتُمْ فَاعِلِينَ. If you have anything else, anything to do at all, that's the biological way of going about it. But neglected utterly. Daughters of the nation, daughters of Lut alayhi salam. لَعَمْرُكَ. By your life, Ya Rasulullah. Allah is swearing by the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. إِنَّهُمْ لَفِي سَكْرَتِهِمْ يَعْمَهُونَ. They were in their wild intoxication, utterly blind, wandering around. فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الصَّيْحَةُ مُشْرِقِينَ. So the shriek seized them at sunrise. فَجَعَلْنَا عَلِيَهَا سَافِلَهَا. So we turned them upside down. وأمطرنا عليهم حجارة من سجيل. And we rained upon them stones of heated clay. إن في ذلك لآيات للمتوسمين. And in that are signs for those who are meticulous. وإنها لبسبيل مقيم. And the ruins of the town are still on that permanent highway. You can see what became of them. إن في ذلك لآية للمؤمنين. And in that there is a sign for those looking to believe. وَإِنْ كَانَ أَصْحَابُ الْأَيْكَةِ لَظَالِمِينَ. And the dwellers of the forest were unjust. فَانْتَقَمْنَا مِنْهُمْ. So we took retribution from them. We took revenge from them. Who are the dwellers of the forest? People of Madian, people of Shu'aib alayhi salam. وَإِنَّهُمَا لَبِإِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. And now both of them are on the clear path, on the highway. You can see what became of them. وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ أَصْحَابُ الْحِجْرِ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And the dwellers of the rocky track, the people of Thamud, to whom Salih alayhi salam was sent, they also denied the messengers. Although only one messenger was sent to them, but denying one is denying all, because they carry the same legacy, that of Tawheed. وَآتَيْنَاهُمْ آيَاتِنَا. And we blessed them with our ayat. فَكَانُوا عَنْهَا مُعْرِضِينَ. But they totally ignored them. وَكَانُوا يَنْحِتُونَ مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا آمِنِينَ. And they used to carve mountains into secure houses. فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الصَّيْحَةُ مُصْبِحِينَ. But they were also overtaken by a shriek early in the morning. فَمَا أَغْنَى عَنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. And all that they did, all the work, it was of no benefit to them. وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. And we did not create the heavens and the earth, including all that's in between them, except with a purpose. What is the point of telling all of these stories? Let you know that the heavens and the earth Allah has created with a purpose. It's a meaningful creation. And He is not going to take it if that meaning is not taken seriously. If that is rendered batil, if that is made meaningless, Allah does not take that lightly. He responds, and He responds quite literally with a bang. destroying those who mess with it. وَإِنَّ السَّاعَةَ لَآتِيَةٌ. And for sure the hour is going to come. All of these adab as a sign for the hereafter, reflecting an attribute of Allah, a sunnah of Allah, that He rewards, He punishes. He saves, He destroys. فَاصْفَحِ الصَّفْحَ الْجَمِيلِ. So Ya Rasulullah, forgive a gracious forgiveness. Again, very beginning of Makkah. Rasulullah is being told, it's only the beginning, don't you worry. Remember what has happened in the nations before you. He's being told he did not know before, and hold strong. All the opposition that you're having to face. Inna rabbaka huwal khallaqul alim. Most definitely, your Rabb is the all creative, all knowing. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَاكَ سَبْعًا مِنَ الْمَثَانِي. And we have blessed you with the 7 oft repeated ayat. سَبْعًا مِنَ الْمَثَانِي. So it's Fatiha. That gift of Fatiha being reiterated before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so as to console him. And what is it that you have in the face of the opposition? He was Sadiq Amin until yesterday. And today he is Kadab, Majnoon, Sahir, all of those things. All of those accusations hurled against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And how did that, it's not, he wasn't, the Quran will acknowledge as it in the next couple of ayat, it hurt him deeply. And so what is the consolation? So it's Fatiha. This gift of Fatiha that Allah gave to the Ummah, but specifically to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to hold strong in that time. Wal Quran al Azim, and the great Quran. The rest of the Quran, but also Quran al Azim refers to Surah Fatiha itself, as to how it carries within itself the essence of the Quran. And so it's aptly labeled as Quran al Azim itself. The value, the sanctity, the fadila of Surah Fatiha. لا تمدن عينيك إلى ما متعنا به أزواجا منهم. So do not look towards the whatever articles of enjoyment that we've given to some of them. They're rich, they're wealthy, they're powerful. Yeah, that's temporary. Don't be distressed by all of what they have and all of what you don't have, in the sense all of that is now being used against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that is going to be used to turn people away from him. وَلَا تَحْزَنْ عَلَيْهِمْ. Also, do not be grieved over them. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's not that he sees what they have and the power and what they're going to do to him and his followers and the messengers, but he also feels bad for them. He is hurt for them. He's distressed, grieved for them. وَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And lower your wings for the believers. The kindness that you're required to have extended to those who have responded to you. وَقُلْ إِنِّي أَنَا النَّذِيرُ الْمُبِينُ. And say, I am a clear warner to these people. كَمَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَى الْمُقْتَسِمِينَ. Just as we revealed to the separators. Who are these separators? There's those who الَّذِينَ جَعَلُوا الْقُرْآنَ عِضِينَ. Those who split the Quran into portions. 2 opinions. One, it says that the Quraysh, in making fun of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would make this mockery. Oh, this part of the Quran is mine, this part of the Quran is mine, and then they're like going around playing, mocking Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, making a mockery of the ayat of the Quran in that way. Or this part is acceptable and this part is not. This part is okay, whatever. And then there's the Jewish people who received the previous recital or the previous revelation and how they had fragmented that. So let these people know that I'm a clear warner. Just like people before were warned for how they had separated fragmenters, those who had, again, the holistic picture or message that Tawheed represents, and how shirk and how whatever is contrary to Tawheed, how it fragments, separates into portions, even scripture. فَوَرَبِّكَ. So by your Rabb, لَنَسْأَلَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. We will most definitely question each and every one of them. عَمَّا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. About all that they used to do. فَاسْدَعْ بِمَا تُؤْمَرْ. Then declare what you are commanded. Now Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is being told, be open about what you're standing on. Prior to this, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam wasn't carrying the message secretly. He wasn't, under the covers as such, hidden from the people, but he was doing it privately. In the sense it was person to person. Everyone had started hearing something about it, which is where all of these abuses are coming from, but he hadn't really made it public. He hadn't kept it under the hood, but it was still private. It wasn't public. It was person to person. It wasn't outrightly the um, announcement from the mountain hadn't happened. وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. And turn away from those who associate with Allah. إِنَّا كَفَيْنَاكَ الْمُسْتَهْزِئِينَ. We will suffice you. We're enough for you against those who mock you. الَّذِينَ يَجْعَلُونَ مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخَرَ. These people who have set other deities along with Allah, فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ. They will soon find out. وَلَقَدْ نَعْلَمُ. And Ya Rasulullah, we know. أَنَّكَ يَضِيقُ صَدْرُكَ. That you feel distressed. That there's this knot in your chest, this anguish, this anxiety that you feel, this it's a psychological state, but it gets so severe, it has this feeling. You feel it right here. We know that you feel it. We know that you're hurt. بِمَا يَقُولُونَ. Because of what they say. All the consolations in their own place, all the reassurances in their own place, they're relevant precisely because Rasulullah is hurt and he's deeply hurt. He feels it right here. He feels it right here. It's like you're stabbed. It's like there's like arrows piercing right through you. Because these are the people that you make yourself vulnerable towards. And what is it to make yourself vulnerable before people? You open yourself up. And when others don't respect that, you make that which is most vital to you, you share it before them. And that's literally biologically what is most vital to us, our heart, our lungs. We open it in front of people. And if they don't value that and they take stabs at it, it hurts deeply. That which I held most dear to me, that what I held dearest to me, I shared that with you. That which Allah revealed to me, literally to my heart, I shared that with you. And you disrespected it. You made fun of it. You made fun of who I am when you did that. And that hurts. Allah acknowledges, Ya Rasulullah, we know that it hurts. It hurts you deep in your chest. فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ. But continue to exalt the praise of your Rabb. وَكُم مِّنَ السَّاجِدِينَ. And join those who do sajda. وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ. And enter into this ubudiyah, become this abd of your Rabb. That should be your defining characteristic. حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ. Till you attain yaqeen. And what is yaqeen? Death. The greatest certainty. Keep holding on to this until death approaches you. This should be your legacy until you breathe your last. And that is what he did. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.